Yeah, I know. I've read some of the stuff that you've written about it. Let me ask you another question. The caller's hung up now, but they point out that you talk about Mr. Obama being threatened by warmongers, but they say President Reagan was shot under the protection of the Secret Service, and
yes,
he certainly was not light on treading against terrorism or anything else.
But that was a different issue, and it's very good that somebody brought that up. First of all, the idea that the Secret Service had a good reputation is absolutely insane. There is no such good reputation. When Franklin D. Roosevelt died under very suspicious circumstances, they allowed a Russian woman painter and her assistant, a man, to leave the premises at Warm Springs, Georgia, with a paint box that could have contained every poison known to man, but the Secret Service didn't care about it. In the case of Kennedy, you've seen that film where you have 4 Secret Service men, honest ones, on the corners of the limousine. A supervisor comes and tells them to get down. They protest. He insists. They do it. And within 5 minutes, Kennedy is dead. Now, in the case of Reagan, this is a very simple question. George H.W. Bush was vice president. He represented the CIA. So there was a vested interest for the CIA in helping Reagan out of office in order to help George H.W. Bush the elder, in. And I'm afraid you have to think in precisely these brutal terms. Similarly,
when you leave, sir, at the end of this hour, people are going to say, Chris, why did you have that conspiracy theorist on? When you're labeled like that, what do you say to people?
I say, look at the facts. This is just empirical. You don't go looking for conspiracies, but you have to tell what you find. And since we have an oligarchical system, we find these things that look like conspiracies. I'll give you another one. Gerald Ford, what was his problem? Similar, that Nelson Rockefeller, the great power in the CIA, the founder of a whole Latin American part of the CIA, really, was vice president. So what do we get with Gerald Ford? Lynette Squeaky Fromm takes pot shots. Sarah Jane Moore takes pot shots. So you can see what it is. Those were slightly different issues. Those are issues of power. In this case, I think it's more like policy. It's more about Syria, Ukraine, China, confrontation. And you don't need to guess about that. Look at what McCain says. Look at what Lindsey Graham says. Look at these people, and you'll see that's what the war party wants, what they're demanding that Obama do. So much so that this has given rise to a movement on the social media, which I'm happy to report about. It goes like this: hashtag arrest McCain for ISIS, with the 4 being the number 4, right? Hashtag arrest McCain for ISIS. And I think that's not only the key to avoiding wider wars, but also to the domestic political situation, right? We've had Mitch McConnell of the Republicans has promised David Koch, Koch brother, whatever he calls himself, that if the Republicans take the Senate, there will be no help for students looking for help on their student loans. There will be no increase in the minimum wage. Heck, there may not be a minimum wage if the Republicans take the Senate, because with the House and the Senate, as McConnell explains on this tape, which also the Democrats are not using, I don't know why, but he explains that if you've just got 51 votes in the Senate, you can do everything you want on a budget reconciliation.
Somewhere Ayn Rand is smiling, I think.
Ayn Rand, yes.
All right, we have to take this break. We'll come back one more segment with Dr. Webster Tarpley. Our number is 1-866-391-1020. Call in right now. KDK Radio News Time 4:50. Dr. Webster Tarpley is our guest. We'll take your calls as soon as we can. Not much time remaining. I urge you to be brief in your answers. Dr. Tarpley, you do agree that there are a number of hardcore terrorists out there that need to be confronted, don't you?
You have got a hardcore of about 25,000 jihadis, I guess, by now, who were deployed under NATO auspices to overthrow Gaddafi in Libya, and Libya is now chaos and practically the end of the world.
Where every country we've invaded is like that. Now, they're not better off than when we invaded.
Although Libya is actually much worse off than Iraq. Right? Part of the problem is where you have tribal structures this is a bad thing if the central government is knocked out. The U.S. and NATO then shipped those crazies over into Turkey and sent them into Syria and Iraq, where they have now run wild. So we have a funny situation where the CIA has built up ISIS, and the U.S. Air Force and the Navy are trying to take it down. It's one of those situations. The Saudis have paid for ISIS, but they have to send planes to bomb them because they're now on the hot seat of world public opinion. So it's a very, very complicated situation. The only thing you can do is pick out the number one spokesperson for the war party, and that's McCain, and concentrate the negativity on him. That's arrest McCain for ISIS. That faction looks something like this. You got McCain and Lindsey Graham up front. They're out in the open. Warmongers behind the scenes in the Obama administration. Skull and Bones John Kerry, Secretary of State. Samantha Power, the head of the humanitarian bombing group. You've got General Allen, an anti-Obama general who is now brought in by Kerry to run the policy on ISIS, if you can believe that. And that then links you. Kerry, Allen was one of the people forced out. Remember with the Paula Broadwell, Tampa, Jill Kelly event? Well, he's now been brought in through the back door. But this leads us then to General Petraeus, the head of this entire faction, I would say is Petraeus. He's their presidential candidate. And then you've got this Jack Keane, often on Fox News. This leads us to the world of the neocon think tanks. Frederick Kagan at the American Enterprise Institute. Jack Keane works for the Institute for the Study of War. And Robert Kagan had been Romney's biggest foreign policy advisor. So that's pretty much the faction that is attempting to have a wider war. Now, what their relation is to these incidents, of course, this is anybody's guess. But we can also, I think, see that there are other people, like Congressman Lamborn of Colorado has called for mutinies in the U.S. military, mass resignations for people who don't like Obama. That's a very, very subversive thing to be doing in wartime, right? I'm amazed that he has not been expelled from the House.
Which congressman is this?
Lamborn of Colorado, and you can find his picture on the front page of Tarpley.net. And that's, I guess, the other thing is if people want to get some background, go to Tarpley.net. I recommend that most. You can go to the Tax Wall Street Party website, and for Syria specifically, Hands Off Syria, and on Twitter, it's No to Invasion. NO, the number 2 invasion.
All right. We have a minute left. What can we do? What can our listeners do? There are a ton of people we'll never get to who want to talk to you, but what can our listeners do?
Get on the social media. Arrest McCain for ISIS. Let that go viral. That's real big problem for the warmonger party. McCain is so far out on a limb with this stuff. It's unbelievable. He has actually said on Hannity one evening, he said, how can Rand Paul or some other congressman have an opinion about ISIS? They've never met with ISIS. And McCain saying, he met with ISIS, my God. And we're supposed to not negotiate with terrorists. So don't vote for warmongers. Vote against warmongers. I think you can see who they are. Neocons, right? They're largely Republican. But watch out for those humanitarian bombers on the Democratic Party side.
And one more time, your website, sir?
Tarpley.net. Tarpley.net.
Dr. Tarpley, it's always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Hope to see you soon.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.